Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of the Nonprofit Show. It is Friday Eve, as I like to call it, for our Thursday. And today we have Al Spector, President and CEO of Strat Dev Tech. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, in fact, Jarrett, we actually use the full name Strategic Development Technologies, our URL at Strat Dev Tech, and sometimes we throw around a little shorty for our name.
Oh my gosh.
Strategic Development Technologies.
Strategic Development Technology, talking to us about broadcasting your nonprofit fundraising events. And if you don't know us, Julia Patrick is typically right by my side, but she does have today off. Julia is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I'm Jarrett Ransom, also known as the Nonprofit Nerd and CEO of the Raven Group. We would not be here broadcasting almost 400 episodes now, coming up on our 400th soon, without the investment and the continued support of our presenting sponsors. So please do check out these companies. I always like to say that they exist for your purpose. They are here to help drive your mission-driven goals forward. They're here to help you solve your community's problems, challenges, and provide those solutions. So please do check them out. And again, thrilled to have with me today, President and CEO, Mr. Al Spector. Welcome.
Thanks, Jarrett. You're always so gracious. Really appreciate your welcome, and it's really fabulous to be here.
Good. Well, why don't we start first of all, and Matthew joins you typically, but we want to congratulate him today for a whole new family life with him. But tell us about Strategic Development Technologies. Who are you? When did this start? What do you do? What is the service product that you help to deliver the sector?
Sure, be glad to. It's kind of a fun little story. I'll start with Matt, my partner in this. He's a seasoned development director with considerable experience in data systems and technology solutions that have brought him quite a bit of success in fundraising. So he's wearing two hats. He's a fundraiser first and foremost, but he's a technology. Let's call him. I hesitate to use the word geek, but he's a technology expert himself. And Matt, he's got a master's from Berkeley in policy, and he's raised some considerable funds in a series of nonprofits. So about me, I've got a history that actually goes back to a lot of corporate posts, but in 2007, I formed a nonprofit and to serve the blind and vision impaired community in some sports access here in the Bay Area, and that started my road in the nonprofit and social impact community. So I've been doing I did the majority of the fundraising for that organization. About 11 years I was at the helm. I've sit on the boards of a couple of others, and along the way I've been advising nonprofits in strategic planning, in structure, in operations, financial control. Well, at one point, Matt and I, we sit on together on the board of an organization here in the East Bay, and we saw during the pandemic the need to help nonprofits with their fundraising, and particularly by helping them embrace the latest technologies, because there's quite a bit of leverage there if you can, if you can grab onto it. So that's how it started. We formed Strategic Development Technologies back in April, but Matt's history of producing live broadcasts goes back, quite a ways now. I think he's had 15 or 20 productions, and wow. So we've now teamed up, and we've had a few productions lately. They've been really marvelous to be part of.
What a time to start this business, especially right when COVID shut down, the pandemic, it's taking place, events kind of went to a screeching halt, and everyone really needed to learn and understand how maybe to connect with their audience, their constituency base through a new modality. So what you and Matthew have done is fantastic. Which leads me to this first question here, Al. Are digital broadcasts for our events, are they here to stay? Are they a fleeting thought? So essentially, are these temporary? Or are they permanent?
That's a great question. And I'm going to answer it in two ways. The first is if you look at the question simply is, do the broadcast evaporate once it's over? Or
Okay.
and the answer to that one, an easier question to answer. Well, no, we record them, and and in fact, rebroadcasting whatever it is your events are, that's a very important fundraising tool. I apologize. There's a little noise here. Right on, we're on location, and it's for real.
Yeah, live on set. That's what
exactly.
happened.
So the answer to the first part, to the first way to look at the question, no, they don't evaporate. They're recorded, and we've seen considerable funds come in from folks watching the rebroadcast with the ability to donate right there online during the rebroadcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe a more intriguing question is this a passing fad? Are we going to have broadcasts only so long as we need them, and then we'll all go back to galas and fun runs and and anything and meeting in person to as the focal point of some of our fundraising? Well, I think that the answer in that lies in that the pandemic actually caused quite a bit of change and real structural change, I think, for us relative to who's on the web, who uses it, the range of activities. So it's no longer sort of young millennial, but the baby boomers, and then people, beyond, older than the baby boomers, who are comfortable doing all kinds of things on the web, particularly buying things, particularly, paying for things. And so it lends itself perfectly to making donations online. So I think that there was quite a bit of an acceleration, during the pandemic. So I don't think it's going away. Let's see. Here's an important point about this as well. The costs of fundraising is really, really brought down in virtual events versus the costs of holding a big gala. And like in any businesses, for-profit, non-profit, that cost avoidance is a big driver. So when it's becomes clear and well understood that the yield and the net proceeds from digital fundraising are much, much higher, I think that's going to be a big driver that's going to cause digital broadcasting and using the web in this way to stay.
So one of the things I'd asked you previously, Al, is about this hybrid approach, right? So what is your take on the hybrid? Is that something that you're really advocating for? Are you saying, we're not really talking about hybrid, we're calling it this broadcasting? Another thing that we've seen is now many of our constituency base has maybe relocated to another part of the nation. And so they want to stay engaged in our community. But are you still calling this hybrid, or how do you and Matthew approach that?
That's a great question, Jarrett. We actually don't use the term hybrid very often, but we prefer to use tandem. And then there's a reason for that. And the tandem suggests that, yes, this is when you're going to have a live event, and you're also going to have an online audience connected to that event somehow. We just did one of these. It was a bike ride for about 120 cyclists, a lot of them, over half of them, disabled cyclists and specially adaptive cycles. And what we did was we wanted the online experience to be equally engaging as if you were there. And so we had about half of the hour of broadcasting being some live tape that we took that morning during the event, but also some historical tape and a real entertaining 30-minute or entertaining and engaging 30 minutes. And then we cut over live to the event and streamed live. And so that was a tandem. And the tandem, again, suggesting that a rich experience for the online participant and a rich experience for those in person. And so that's how we're viewing what's going forward, is always an opportunity to hook to connect a broadcast to a live event going on, but not just an iPhone in the corner on a tripod and just let it run. We're pretty much dead against that.
I think we've all witnessed that, and it's like, oh, this is not a broadcast. This is I don't know, just a bare minimum attempt at opening those digital doors, as we call them here at the Nonprofit Show. But I like your answer. And it was really kind of a two-part answer, Al, to, yes, you can archive your digital broadcasts so that they can be watched again. And yes, we also believe that they are here to stay. So if they are here to stay, can you share with us, or will you please share with us, some best practices for really enhancing our strong broadcast? One of the things I've noticed, Al, is that so many of the nation has become comfortable with having, some kind of a video conference meeting. And so we've adapted to that level of familiarity. And now we're taking it almost to that next step, right? So we've made some baby steps. We've advanced from crawling to walking. And now we're really looking at, okay, where can we level up even further? So what are some of these best practices that you can provide to us to really make a strong broadcast?
Sure. At the outset of this particular topic, I think it's important to realize what your goal is, and the goal is not just broadcast for broadcast's sake, but it's to create a highly engaging experience and an event that's going to resonate, and then hopefully you'll have return viewers. And so you want to have a strategy to make that happen. And remember what you're after too is a fundraising function. So it's not just to have your broadcast stand alone, certainly not to have it evaporate, but it's to connect it with the rest of what you do. So doing some of that strategizing is important. I think it was Brian Greenwald, I think the other day mentioned, he talks about tech discovery. And doing some strategic planning, some assessment about what you've got, where you're going, and the tools that you'll need to do that, and the kind of events that you're going to want to broadcast to do that. So there's a strategic thought at the beginning. Okay, so let's go down into the weeds a little bit about broadcasting. And an important point is the meeting applications and webinar applications that are out there. They're fantastic. They had tremendous boons for the best known of them during the pandemic, but those aren't broadcasting technologies. And so and all of this, I hope I make this clear, is shockingly affordable. The cost of these technologies is extremely low. So even the broadcasting technologies that we use, they're in the same range as the meeting and webinar platforms. It's just that they have functionality that you want for broadcasting. You want to have things like multiple camera angles, and so you don't want to have that iPhone in the corner, kind of staleness to it, and have that set in quickly. The next thing is, I'll just rattle off a couple of things that we practice that seem to enhance the quality of the broadcast. Don't neglect the quality of your audio. And case in point, I'm using some wireless mic technology right now, and we think that in our experience has been that bringing up the quality of the audio is extremely important. We're in the discussion about streaming a small symphony and putting that online, and the audio is central to that. So and it's really cheap to up the audio with dedicated mics and like. So there's something to remember. We're strident about accessibility. This is strong broadcast now. Okay, so it's creativity, multiple camera angles, good audio. Accessibility is very important to us, particularly with some of the nonprofits that we support. Closed captioning, a telephone dial-in option for the vision impaired. So those things are really, really important. You want to make it easy for people to, first of all, find the link, make that really, available, be able to register easily, be able to click in and be able to join. Make that as easy as you can, and then be as creative as you can in the actual broadcast. Biggest tip, the broadcast doesn't stand alone. It's got to be connected to your strategy, and then the data that you're able to collect by broadcasting, by having people register, and there's registration systems that will give you really robust data and drive it right into your donor database. You want to think about a strategy like that, a data strategy, because what you're after is you're building your database, you're building your constituents, your followers. You want to be able to reach back to them, and that 72 hours after the broadcast is the most important time to actually go reconnect with those people that just saw the show.
So are you also advocating for maybe a professional MC, or is this something that the organization, can have the executive director, a board chair, the development person. Is this an internal person that can really do what you're doing right now, Al, and be live on set, right? Or are you thinking to one of the best practice for this broadcast is really to have someone who's comfortable in front of a camera, knowledgeable with holding the microphone? What are some of your best practices when it comes to that key person or persons?
That great question. Let's consider a very simple broadcast, an engagement, in fact, an event. And we don't have to think of the events being as giant parties, at the symphony hall, or in big black tie galas. Think of events very simply where we're for having a cadence of events, so that you can have a bit of a donor database engine going. So anytime you have an event, there's an opportunity for people to join you. I call it establishing your corner of the digital village green. Think about your place on the internet, in the cloud, and it's a place where people know where you are, they know what you're going to get, and so it's to establish that. Now, as far as a very simple event, let's say it's an interview of an author on the topic, that's close, that's relevant to the cause of your nonprofit, to its mission. Just the executive director live, and interviewing that author, maybe with some readings from the book, or, a very simple thing. That executive director just has to do what executive directors do. And I'd suggest, I hope we have time for another topic that's, a segue into the next one, that has to do with the nature of the skill sets that you need to embrace these technologies. But having professional MC and hosts and all that, fantastic. But for small events and, the nonprofits, always watching out for their budget, these are things that the staff can do without the learning curve is short, and it's easy. So having the ability to put an event online at any time and not make a big production out of it, but do it often, do it simply, that I think is the way to go, so that you got that engine for to attract new constituents all the time.
I have seen some organizations of all different sizes out really become, and I think one of the words of the last 18 months has been nimble. Organizations have become extremely nimble, very adept to trying something new, doing this pivot, seeing what works. And I think the more we practice and the more we build our practice muscles of doing something often, it really does help us to, implement some new best practices and go from one step to the next, and to continue to kind of level up in our knowledge and expertise. So this is kind of that crystal ball question that I always like to ask, but what is the digital road for these development professionals? Where are we going? So your first question that I had asked you is, are these here to stay? Yes, we believe that they are here to stay. So really including this in part of your strategy. So what does this digital road ahead look like for you?
That's a question and a topic that Matt and I spend quite a bit of time discussing. I'll give you our own setting, and you may I think this may shed some light on it. That Matt and I are really fundraisers, and he's got a head for the technology, but really started to dig in on it when he in the midst of a series of development director positions, and just started to embrace it and learn it and understand it. So he's not a technology professional. He's a fundraising professional, but he's had and a smart, admittedly a really smart guy, but is able to grasp those. My background in business, in management, in nonprofit leadership, in the mechanics of nonprofits, and in fundraising, and financial control and fundraising. And so my focus wasn't on the technology, but by being in nonprofits, we're in and around it, and and everybody's talking about the database and how it works, and and all the problems that we're having, and whether we need a new one, and so these skills are not magical. They're just ones that are, that you've got to, spend some time, invest in. And it's not all that hard. In the productions that we do, Matt he's our CTO, but he's also our executive producer up in the studio in Petaluma. He's off site. I'm on the ground on location, and at one day he started calling me director, and so I've become our on site director,
Sure.
and I cable up all the equipment and the audio, and I've got a bag with me, our camera bag. So this is not hard to transition. It's not hard to make. All right. Having said all that, there's a few skills and a few focus areas that we think are important. Actually, they're arriving as development professionals, arrive, particularly the millennials, and start to come into to the positions that we've held. Here are some focused skills that we think that are going to be really advantageous. It's being really involved in your donor database and donor database management, and particularly skilled in the new databases and the ones whose inception was in cloud-based and web design. So it's the new the new generation of databases, and really dig in and understand how those work. They're going to be the key to everything, because the game's about data. So there's one chunk of it there.
Yeah.
The other one is an awareness of video platforms and video tools. Really, fantastic communication phenomenon, that is really, blossoming. We have a tool, we call it our board activation tool. And what we do is we do a short video of each of the board of directors, of each board member, and they can do that right from their home. And then we put a canned piece of film on it, and that's their solicitation. That's where they can easily go out to their circles and raise
That
funds.
is fantastic, Al, because I know there's so many, how do I say this? There's often leaders that will say, I wish my board would do more, or I'd really want my board to help with fundraising and solicitations. And so knowing that this is something that can engage the board, use some small, implementation, but critical. And as you said, put this together, and they could do it from home. I know many people are still social distanced across the nation. So whatever level of comfort that is. And again, looking at how many of our residents have perhaps relocated. So your board may not be local board anymore. They may also have relocated, but stayed engaged with your community. I also wanted to touch on briefly what you just said with, using the younger generations, being millennials or younger. I'm going to admit to my 11-year-old knowing how to do way more on YouTube than I know how. And, he is this close to being put on my own payroll, because he is really good at that digital platform and a little bit more advanced than I am when it comes to this broadcasting. So I'm curious if you could talk to us in, little short amount of time that we unfortunately have left, this digital road ahead. I'm curious, Al, how we might be able to embrace perhaps other people's skill sets and talents. And I'm thinking volunteers. This may not be staff, but this is volunteers or a corporate partnership, other individuals, to really engage them as we look at this digital road ahead.
Yeah, that's a fantastic suggestion, because the most effective nonprofits that I've seen, with an effective staff, an empowering board, as well as a cadre of volunteers with a fantastic skills. And I've seen some that are very, very technology savvy, and if you can make it fun too. But I think the video makes it fun. The multimedia, the tools are fun, and they're really not that hard to grasp. I think, short of the volunteers, if you have them, at your disposal, or have them available to you, but the staff, watching some very small staffs take on some of these tools, and it's really fun to watch, and it's fun to see them grasp and light up to what these tools do. We had an interesting conversation with a customer that we produced a broadcast for, and it had to do, they wanted to just have us film the event, just film the event, and we'll replay it.
Okay.
And the executive director told us, as advisors and as outsiders, drive us and the staff to making this live. It was, and the staff, I hope, learned quite a bit and transformed into saying, "Oh, well, live, look at live," and live, they were just timid, and they
Yes.
thought, wow, what a hassle that's going to be. And so anyway, it's getting the staff to just pivot a bit, or sort of twist the kaleidoscope just a little, to adding some skills to their jobs, it's oftentimes a development director's alone. But it's like I said, the use of these tools, and they get everybody excited, and even the board getting excited, and it's not all that hard to make this transformation. You just got to grab on.
Well, I think it's fearful, right? It's the fear of the unknown. What if technology doesn't work, as you were saying in your best practices? What if the audio doesn't work? What if the right cable doesn't go in, or something happens that really just messes up that live segment? I remember, when many of these events did go hybrid, although that was before you coined it Tandem, really having
I coined that.
having this opportunity to say, I feel like the more we can record and put on a streaming platform live makes us feel a little bit more in control, because this live, as we've witnessed today, you are live out,
Yep.
in this remote location, and there are elements to deal with, whether it's, noises or people walking behind you, or, wildlife. There's so many different things out of our control when it comes to this live element that I think does evoke a bit of fear. But I think that what you've provided, Al, helps us take it a little bit further to understand, that this is the road ahead. This is where we're going, and it shouldn't be as scary.
No, not at all. And in fact, briefly mention a couple of other things. The technologies, the design is really fantastic. So, well, first of all, before all that is rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Do not. There's no. It's always the best. Make
Not
sure
impromptu.
you've really rehearsed. Make sure you know how to use the stuff. But the design of these technologies is almost fail safe. The ability to dial down the background noise of that truck that's actually parked really close to me right now, things like that. So all of it is really designed, and it's really easy for the user, even to the point where there's some challenging environments that we really like. We're excited sometimes when we're out on the water, or in an office building with 3-foot thick walls where the Wi-Fi is real kludgy. Well, that's extremely affordable, that aggregates all of the cell phone signals for you and stabilizes your ability to stream, things like that. And the stuff is not expensive. It's just come a long way, and it's available. So there's ways to eliminate, or let's call it alleviate most of the risk of going live. And we're big proponents, because we've seen the popularity of live really go. If you connect it with online fundraising right there during the live event, it's actually kind of magical.
Well, this has been magical. What you and Matt are doing with Strategic Development Technologies is magical. It is here to stay. It's not to evaporate. So if you are interested in learning about this tandem approach and doing a little bit more into this digital broadcast, I hope that you will reach out to our friends Al and Matt with Strategic Development Technologies. Their information is right here, stratdevtech.org. It has been fantastic to have you with me today, Al, live on location. Again, I love that. And so grateful that you would share your expertise and all of your information so that we can take this road ahead in a little bit more confident manner. So Julia missed a great episode, but I know that she's working on something big tomorrow. Julia Patrick is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I get to join Julia each and every morning as the nonprofit nerd, Jarrett Ransom, CEO of the Raven Group. And again, so grateful to have our presenting sponsors. Many of these, just like our guest today, have this technology base and are really helping our nonprofit sector across the nation continue to drive your mission-driven goals forward. Please do check them out. We are extremely grateful and appreciative to have their investment and commitment to the show and to the sector at large. And Al, thank you. It has been fantastic to learn more about the digital broadcast from you. I appreciate your time.
Sure, Jared, thanks very much. And please relay my thanks to Julia as well. And, we'll all congratulate Matt on having a baby boy this morning.
Absolutely. And for him and everyone watching, we end every episode, now almost 400, by saying, please stay well so you can do well. Thanks so much, Al. I wish you and Matt the best. And thanks for all that you're doing in our sector.
Sure. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it.